Welcome to today's edition of Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty. I am Andrew Hoty, and as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out the show on social media. As always, you can find me at HotyAndrew on Twitter/X, on Facebook, Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty, and of course on Instagram at Hoty Raw Takes for more on the show, updates, and more. The second edition of Raw Takes this week with me, Andrew Hoty. Of course, we have Short Take Saturday coming up later in the week as well, as we have college football going on then, and plenty more to talk about in terms of the upcoming slate of NFL games on that video. But let's start things off with the Cleveland Cavaliers once again defeating the Philadelphia 76ers 114-106, win number 13. The Cavs are the sixth team in NBA history to start a season 13-0. They're only 11 wins away from chasing down the Golden State Warriors of 2015-16 from their 24-0 start. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself on that. I'm just saying they're that close to possibly starting 24-0. And I'm not saying they're gonna, they may, they might not. It's a little far out there. Obviously, they would go on to finish 73-9. I think this Cavs team right now is on a great pace to even win 60 games, let alone 50. But 50, I think, is already in the books. We know how good this Cavs offense is going to be, and how the Eastern Conference has been pretty weak. And you just look at Boston and Cleveland for the majority of the season having those best records. Cleveland really in front of Boston. But Indiana, of course, being like the third place team, they've been bubbling 500. It's been kind of a mess in the Eastern Conference. And obviously a lot of teams off to slow starts that we expect will pick it up. Look at Giannis and what he did last night, dropping 59 points. And you look at the rest of the NBA and the Eastern Conference right now, the 76ers should be figuring things out slowly but surely now that Joel Embiid is slowly going to be back in the lineup. But of course, there's been some off-the-court issues and injury with Joel Embiid, which has been pretty much his downfall so far to open the year. But Paul George is still on the roster, and you'd expect, with Nick Nurse being the head coach there, that they'd figure something out with the Philadelphia 76ers. But hey, they did all this injury management stuff, and that was the reports that came out yesterday when Joel Embiid and Paul George didn't play. Injury management. Are we sure that's just not another fancy term for load management? Because that's what it felt like last night. Now, the Cavs were in a little bit of trouble early on in the game. I mean, Philadelphia led at halftime, so that was kind of a cause for concern when it comes to the Cleveland Cavaliers. But they still found a way to finish it out, and they grinded it out, and they won the game. Kenny Atkinson obviously being so offensive-focused, and we've seen this offense just absolutely explode. And the Cleveland Cavaliers have been on fire because of it. And I'm very happy to be watching this team play the way they are. I mean, when you just look at the core four guys, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, and even Darius Garland. I mean, those four guys, Darius Garland especially, not just even a Darius Garland, especially Darius Garland, I should say. Those four guys have been the offensive kings. And we talked about the chemistry doesn't really work with these four guys, but Kenny Atkinson, and I think the whole reason they hired Kenny Atkinson, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and what Kobe Altman saw in Kenny Atkinson was that Kenny Atkinson had a better plan for the core four than J.B. Bickerstaff. And J.B. Bickerstaff, being so defensive-minded, created such a great defensive culture for this team that they were able to keep applying those same principles, but have Kenny Atkinson start to run this offense. And so far, that's been working for the Cleveland Cavaliers as they rest at 13-0. No one's been able to stop them. It's been great, and I know everybody here in Cleveland is ecstatic about it, especially with how bad the Browns have been. So, yeah, the Cavaliers are absolutely on fire, and it's been tremendous to watch. You look at the rest of the NBA, especially in the Eastern Conference, it really hasn't been that tremendous. It's so early in the season still, but the Denver Nuggets are starting to pick things up a little bit at 7-3. You look at the Golden State Warriors, they're off to a hot start. I didn't expect the Golden State Warriors to be this good with Klay Thompson now playing for the Dallas Mavericks, but we saw that clutch shot Steph Curry made to win the game the other day over Dallas and Klay Thompson's return. I mean, that was just, whoo, oh man. The Warriors look pretty good this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're contending for a finals championship. It may feel like 2016 all over again because of how good the Warriors have been and how good the Cavs are. But obviously, on paper, the Cleveland Cavaliers are a lot better than the Golden State Warriors, so I would love that finals matchup. But having said that, we still have the Boston Celtics to deal with. We haven't played them yet, and we have to see them 2 times before the calendar year flips over. I like our odds of being 15-0 going into that Celtics game. But part of me still says, do we need to lose that game beforehand so we can be brought down to earth just a little bit? That way when we go to that Boston Celtics game, we're a lot more prepared and ready to win it. Or, of course, if we start off 16-0, I'm totally fine too. I love to have that mentality as well. But to me, that makes me a little nervous when it comes to playing the Boston Celtics soon because that roster, on paper, they have literally the bench as probably a good starting 5. somewhere else in the NBA. If that was a starting five for the Charlotte Hornets, the bench, really, honestly, it would be. That's how good the bench the Celtics have is. Now, the bench depth on the Cavaliers is a lot better than it was, let's say, in the Knicks series a few years ago. But having said that, I don't trust the Cavs bench compared to the Celtics bench. The Celtics have superstars already in the starting lineup. When you already talk about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown being your 1-2-man show, and they're very well coached under Joe Mazzulla, that's one hell of a roster. It really, really is. And it's such a player-driven league compared to coach-driven league, but really we could see that coaching does matter in the NBA, and I think your prime example of that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Look at what they're doing with no J.B. Bickerstaff. There wasn't a 13-game winning streak under J.B. Bickerstaff. There was some great Januaries, but there wasn't really this kind of streak. And we had a 13-game winning streak with LeBron back in the 2017-18 season, I believe it was, where they went on a tear and just won 13 straight games. And they made the finals that year but got swept to Golden State. So it has happened before with the Cavs where they've won 13 straight. But to open the season the way they have with no LeBron James and a different core group of younger guys led by Donovan Mitchell, that's special. And the Cleveland Cavaliers have proven that they are a special group of talent. And it's been fun to watch. It really is. And I think the entire NBA has the Cleveland Cavaliers on notice, and they're in the sights of everybody. So the Cavs are going to lose at some point. They're not going to go 82-0, even though that would be great. But as I said, we have the Hornets coming up. We have the Bulls coming up. I believe it might be the Bulls, then the Hornets. It's in that order somewhere. I have to double check that. But with that favorable schedule, the Cleveland Cavaliers might go into the Boston game 15-0 and playing essentially for the first spot in the Eastern Conference if the Celtics continue to not lose any games. Because I believe they only have 2 losses as of right now on the season. So that is really, really impressive for both of those groups. And right now, that's who runs the Eastern Conference. If I were to say the season ending today, who would I have in the Eastern Conference Finals? Hands down, the Boston Celtics and Cleveland Cavaliers, and I give the Celtics an edge. But when you look at the rest of the NBA, and especially in the Eastern Conference, like I've said over and over again, Doc Rivers deserves to be on the hot seat because of how bad the Bucks are with 2 superstar players and Giannis doing what he did last night. If the Milwaukee Bucks don't figure out a way to win sooner than later in the regular season, then Doc Rivers has to go. Nick Nurse, I'm starting to think, maybe on the hot seat, as long as the Philadelphia 76ers keep continuing on this downward trajectory. But, of course, the regular season's so long. There's 82 games to be played, and there's a lot left over. But a lot of these teams are only 2 wins, 3 wins into the season, especially in the Eastern Conference. There's a lot of major problems going on. And I look at the West right now and how it compares. You look at Oklahoma City. You look at the Golden State Warriors now playing the way they're playing. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable, by the way, but as I said before, the Golden State Warriors with no Klay Thompson now do look like finals contenders. You also have to take a look at the Denver Nuggets and how good they are. The Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, the list goes on in the Western Conference too. It's going to be a battle. It really, really is. And there's so many games left to be played, but the Cleveland Cavaliers are on top of everybody. They're on top of everybody, and it feels darn good being a Cleveland Cavaliers fan right now, knowing that. And as I said before, I see 2 winnable games coming up. 15-0 is possible to start things off for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but let's just take in the 13-0 and go game to game. That Boston Celtics game coming up is going to be very, very big, though, for both of those teams because it may determine who dictates the Eastern Conference moving forward from there. So, a lot going on with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they're in really, really good shape. Let's talk a little bit about the NFL now. The Cleveland Browns preparing to take on the New Orleans Saints, but it seems like there's a lot of infield drama that continues to take place with the Browns, especially after the bye week. We heard the statement from Jedrick Wills Jr. not being able to play because it was a business decision to rest due to an injury. If that's the case, totally fine with it. I think Jedrick Wills absolutely needed to rest if he was injured, but why do you use the term business decision? And Kevin Stefanski pointed that out, the Browns head coach, that he should not have used those words. And you think he shouldn't have used those words? It did not sound very good from Jedrick Wills Jr. I'm on the boat that he's already a bust and it's time to move on if you're the Browns, so I would be making a business decision when it comes to Jedrick Wills this upcoming offseason. And that business decision would be he's playing for somebody else next season. He's just not been the guy we all anticipated he would be. And in 2020, he had a really good season, but Jedrick Wills has just not panned out, and it's been a huge problem for this Browns offensive line, which over the last 4 years has been pretty sturdy, but he's always been the biggest flaw. DeJuan Jones stepping in and putting on a show last year was great, but DeJuan Jones is not nearly the guy we saw last year, and maybe that's coaching, maybe that's just DeJuan Jones had a really good rookie season, he started to fall off. DeJuan Jones was a lot better, of course, than Jedrick Wills over the last couple weeks, with Jedrick Wills being out, but still, I'm not so sure DeJuan Jones is going to be that long-term answer either. You look at the rest of the offensive line, still pretty sturdy when you have Joel Bitonio, Ethan Posick as your center, who's been really good. He hasn't been J.C. Treader good, but he's been living up to a really good standard as a center. You take a look at Wyatt Teller. Jack Conklin's been injury prone, and that's been a problem for the Browns too. But this offensive line as a unit should be a lot better. Zach Zinter, I think, could be really good when you're developing a guard there. The Browns always have known how to develop offensive linemen. That's actually never been a problem for the Browns organization. Mainly their biggest problem has always been quarterback, and it's on full display this year. With that being said, though, Jameis Winston's going to get to start again. If the Browns lose, is it time for DTR? I don't think so. I still think Jameis has a lot of potential. And this is kind of a revenge game for Jameis Winston taking on the New Orleans Saints. I like the Browns' odds this week. Will they win? I wouldn't be surprised if they lose. It's kind of a toss-up game. Either way, I think the season is shot, so it doesn't matter. But if the Browns win, it would be nice, especially in a rowdy environment like New Orleans is. And that's a tough place to play when you're down at the Superdome. I believe it's a Caesars Superdome now. I keep saying Mercedes-Benz, but it's a Caesars Superdome now. And the New Orleans Saints are definitely going to be competing in that game too. But I think because, they had the whole head coach firing, they had a brand new look when they took on the Atlanta Falcons last week, and I don't think the Falcons knew what was coming. I still like the Atlanta Falcons to win that division, by the way. But, I think the New Orleans Saints are going to be a lot better than what they were, but they're still kind of a mystery. So I'm not ready to say the New Orleans Saints are going to be as good as they were to open the year or as bad as they were in the middle, which led to the firing of Dennis Allen. So this is really a toss-up game to me. It would be great if the Browns win and rattle off some wins. Kevin Stefanski's too good of a coach to go worse than 6-11, in my opinion. If the Browns end up with 5 or 4 wins, I'd be very surprised. I think they're going to end up with 6. And it's just going to be how they get those wins. They probably split with Pittsburgh. They might win the Cincinnati game, but probably doubtful. Heck, they might sweep Baltimore because Baltimore may have nothing to play for Week 18 and bench everybody. So that's a possibility, too. Still a lot to get to, though, in terms of the Browns, and we'll have to see how this season ends up. But they're 2-7, and it's not looking like it's going in an upward trajectory whatsoever. Looking at some of the other NFL headlines this week, the Chicago Bears are making some big headlines because they fired their offensive coordinator. Probably the right move, but I think this is what's going to come down to with the Chicago Bears. We talked about, and especially me, I talked about how I would fire the front office because they drafted Caleb Williams and traded away Justin Fields. Now I'm in a position where they drafted Caleb Williams over Jaden Daniels. And we see what Jaden Daniels is doing to the Washington Commanders. That's even more fireable. Because they traded away Justin Fields, who is currently benched. I still believe in Justin Fields long-term and think he will be the long-term starter for the Steelers. But I just cannot believe the Bears made that decision. I just can't believe it. I would have stuck with Fields and drafted Marvin Harrison. I said that numerous times. But now they're in a position where they traded that pick and they didn't draft Jaden Daniels. And we see what Jaden Daniels is doing with the Washington Commanders, and he made the Bears pay with that Hail Mary touchdown a few weeks ago. So the Bears are absolutely in the gutter right now, and I think disaster is on the horizon. Look at that schedule they have. All NFC opponents, but they have all 6 division games left. Detroit is better than them, Green Bay is better than them, and Minnesota is better than them. They could be 0-6 in terms of division games. I think they're going to either beat Minnesota or Green Bay. I don't see them beating Detroit because I think Detroit's on another level right now. But it's unbelievable to me that the Chicago Bears are this bad with Caleb Williams. And they made that decision and went forward with it. And that there was all this media hype surrounding Caleb Williams and how good the Bears' offense is going to be. Caleb Williams stinks. He stinks. The offensive coordinator stunk too, and you had to let him go. Matt Eberflus is done after this year, by the way. Kiss him goodbye if you're a Chicago Bears fan. I'm sure the Bears fans are fine with that at this point. But the front office has to go. The Bears are just a mess. They really are. If they would have drafted Jaden Daniels, this situation might have been a lot better now. I'm really starting to realize that. I might have traded away Justin Fields to go get a Jaden Daniels. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20. But the Bears made the mistake of the year drafting Caleb Williams and not Jaden Daniels, and it's starting to become the light now. And now look at what the Commanders are doing. They're going to be playing tonight against the Philadelphia Eagles for a chance for division supremacy in the NFC East. It's unbelievable that the Bears have gotten themselves into this position. Moving on with other NFL topics, Anthony Richardson is going to be the starter for the Indianapolis Colts yet again, just because Joe Flacco has been struggling the way he has been, and the Colts aren't winning football games. Probably the right decision, but like I mentioned in a video before, Anthony Richardson would be off my team based on the fact he was tired and came out in the third quarter of a football game. He was tired. If it was an injury, totally understandable. He was tired and said it to the media. Unbelievable. And so I'm not so sure the players on that team are going to look at Anthony Richardson the same way. I'm just not. And if I'm the Indianapolis Colts teammates, do I want to be defending Anthony Richardson on the offensive line? Do I want to be catching passes from him if I'm Pittman? Do I want to be running the football for him if I'm Jonathan Taylor? It's a bad teammate decision what he made, and the Indianapolis Colts are going to have to suffer through it. Now, granted, the Indianapolis Colts are pretty much still in the playoff hunt right now. The Denver Broncos are ahead of them. You look at the Los Angeles Chargers. I think the Chargers are a legit playoff team. So I think we'll see the Chargers book themselves in. I'm not so sure I'm sold on the Denver Broncos. And obviously, between Pittsburgh and Baltimore, one of those teams is going to be a wild card team. So, yeah, I think the Indianapolis Colts did need to make decisions somewhere because they're still in the thick of this race, but there's a long way to go for the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm not so sure Anthony Richardson's the guy that's going to be able to deliver that. But that's a big headline surrounding the Colts going into this week, that Anthony Richardson will be back as their starter, and it'll be interesting to see what takes place. You look around the rest of the NFL and some of the games that are taking place. Obviously tonight, Washington and Philadelphia. That's going to be huge. I like Washington in this game just because we've seen so many highlights from them this season and how fun they are. It's time to kind of mix up the fresh blood in the NFC East, and I think the Washington Commanders overtake Philadelphia tonight. I'm not sold on the Eagles long term. There's still questions about their defense that I don't like. And the Philadelphia Eagles, though, have proven me wrong on a lot of different ways. But the Cowboys are a shell of themselves, and obviously the Giants are a mess. This is really Washington and Philadelphia's division to lose. Either one of these teams could do it, and I think whoever doesn't win the division is obviously going to be a wild card team. So the culture in Washington has shifted so dramatically. I'd like to think that the momentum is on their side tonight to overtake the Philadelphia Eagles. But I think this is going to be a really fun Thursday night football game. And we have a lot of great Thursday night football games coming up that should be pretty exciting too. Although the Browns are featured in some of them, which may stink for the nation. But here in Cleveland, we'll just breathe through it and hope maybe we can go on some miraculous 9-0 run and go to the postseason and all that. I don't think that's going to happen. Well, I guess you should say 8-0 run because I believe there's only 8 games left to be played. And they finish 10-7 and somehow make the playoffs. I think that's a long shot, but hey, it's possible. Other than that, you still look at the standings. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're winning all their games close, which I think is a cause for concern for Chiefs fans, but I honestly am not concerned because that's just how the Kansas City Chiefs get you. That's how they get you. They get you with close games, and that's how they won. I was so mad about the Denver Broncos not making that field goal because it would have given the Chiefs the first loss of the season. But unbelievable way to finish a football game. And the Broncos played them tough. If I'm the Chiefs, I'm not so sure I'm excited to go be playing in Denver again. So that is definitely an impressive thing that the Denver Broncos almost pulled off, but they didn't at the end of the day. So the Chiefs are obviously going to celebrate that. And they're on their way to possibly a 17-0 season. They're already saying the scriptwriter jokes, oh, Chiefs-Lions Super Bowl, Chiefs are going to win by 4, all that crap. I'm not so sure that's going to be the case with the scriptwriters, but it's looking really good that we're going to have a Chiefs-Lions Super Bowl. And I would be excited about it only if the Lions win. That's just where I stand on that. If the Lions beat the Chiefs, that would be phenomenal. Great for the city of Detroit, obviously, but I think everybody in the country outside of Kansas City, Missouri would love that. So we'll have to see what takes place. But obviously tonight, Philadelphia, Washington. I'm going to take Washington to win the game. Let's go 23-17. Jayden Daniels has a really good game. The defense plays really well. Head coached by Dan Quinn, of course. And Dan Quinn, what a comeback he's made so far. I think he should be in the Coach of the Year conversation, to be quite honest with you, because he kind of came into Washington, fixed a mess relatively quickly, and he has head coaching experience already and has been to a Super Bowl with the Atlanta Falcons. So I think Dan Quinn has done a tremendous job for Washington this year. But obviously, towards the end of the season, we'll worry more and more about those awards at the end of the year. That's going to be it for today's edition of Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty. Make sure to stick around for Short Take Saturday coming up on Saturday. I'm Andrew Hoty. Those are my Raw takes. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like this video, and follow the show on social media. All the social media links are in the comments below. Well, in the description below, I should say. Hopefully your comments will be in the comment below, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible, because I want to hear your Raw takes just as much as you've heard my Raw takes. Because I'm Andrew Hoty. Those are my Raw takes. We'll see you on Saturday, everybody. Have a good one. Take it easy.